Emma Thompson had always been someone who liked to dream big. She wasn't the kind of person to sit back and wait for opportunities to come her way. She went out and created them herself. A hard-working marketing executive with a sharp mind, and an even sharper eye for detail, Emma had spent years climbing the corporate ladder. But deep down, she wanted something more, something that would give her financial freedom and let her explore passions beyond her 9-to-5 job. That's when the idea hit her: investing in real estate. After months of research, Emma found exactly what she was looking for: a charming little bungalow tucked away in a lively neighborhood. The location was perfect. It was close enough to popular tourist spots to attract visitors, but far enough from the chaos of downtown to feel cozy and welcoming. The house itself was adorable, with white painted walls, a small front porch adorned with flower pots, and large windows that let sunlight pour in. It needed some work, sure. But Emma saw potential. She poured her heart into renovating the place. She picked out furniture piece by piece, making sure everything matched the warm, inviting vibe she envisioned. Soft throw pillows, rustic wooden tables, and soft lighting transformed the space into a homey retreat. Every corner of the bungalow screamed comfort and relaxation. When it was finally ready, Emma proudly listed it on popular vacation rental platforms like Airbnb and Vrbo. And just like that, her side hustle as a property owner began. At first, things couldn't have gone better. Bookings rolled in almost immediately. Travelers loved the bungalow's charm, cleanliness, and convenient location. Positive reviews flooded in, praising Emma's attention to detail and hospitality. Some guests even left heartfelt notes about how much they enjoyed their stay, saying it felt like a second home. For Emma, reading those messages made all the effort worth it. Not only was she earning extra income, but she was also creating memorable experiences for people from all over the world. Life seemed perfect, but perfection has a funny way of slipping through your fingers when you least expect it. Everything changed when Emma received an offer she couldn't refuse, an overseas assignment at her company's headquarters. It was a chance to grow professionally, gain international experience, and take her career to the next level. There was no question about whether or not she should accept. This was the opportunity she'd been waiting for. Still, leaving behind her life and her Airbnb for 6 months felt daunting. To ease her worries, Emma hired a reputable property management company. They promised to handle everything while she was gone, from managing bookings to ensuring the bungalow stayed clean and well-maintained. With their help, Emma felt confident that her investment would continue running smoothly. After all, what could possibly go wrong? What Emma didn't know was that trouble was already brewing right under her nose, or rather right next door. Karen Wilkins, a middle-aged woman with a reputation for being overly involved in neighborhood affairs, lived just 2 houses down from the bungalow. Karen fancied herself the unofficial leader of the Homeowners Association, HOA. She attended every meeting, sent countless emails complaining about minor issues, and constantly reminded everyone of the rules. Her neighbors often joked that Karen treated the HOA guidelines like sacred scripture. Karen had always disliked short-term rentals. In her opinion, they brought noise, traffic, and strangers into the neighborhood, disrupting its peacefulness. She'd tried multiple times to convince the HOA board to ban them altogether, but her efforts never gained enough traction. Most residents either supported vacation rentals or simply didn't care enough to get involved. Frustrated and feeling ignored, Karen grew more determined to take matters into her own hands. When Emma's bungalow became one of the most popular listings in the area, Karen's disdain reached new heights. She complained incessantly about late-night parties, even though there weren't any, loud music which didn't exist, and cars parked in front of her driveway, despite clear street parking rules. Each complaint fell on deaf ears, both with the HOA and local authorities. Karen felt powerless until fate handed her an unexpected opening. One quiet afternoon, Karen noticed something unusual. The bungalow, which usually had guests coming and going, appeared empty. No lights were on, no cars were parked outside, and no activity seemed to be happening inside. Curiosity got the better of her, and Karen decided to investigate. She walked up to the front door, peeked through the windows, and even knocked a few times. No answer. This discovery sparked an idea in Karen's mind, an idea that quickly spiraled into something much bigger than she'd initially imagined. If no one was using the property, why shouldn't she step in? After all, she reasoned, the neighborhood would benefit from having a responsible resident living there instead of random tourists passing through. What started as a fleeting thought soon turned into a plan, one that would set off a chain of events neither Emma nor Karen could have anticipated. As Emma boarded her flight to another continent, excited for the adventure ahead, little did she know that her cozy bungalow was about to become the center of a bizarre and infuriating drama. Back home, Karen Wilkins was already plotting her next move, completely unaware of the storm she was about to unleash. Not just on Emma, but on the entire neighborhood. Karen Wilkins wasn't the type of person to sit idly by when she believed something was wrong. To her, the presence of short-term rentals like Emma's bungalow represented a threat to everything she valued about her neighborhood: peace, order, and stability. In Karen's mind, these vacation homes disrupted the quiet charm of the community, bringing in strangers who didn't care about local rules or traditions. She'd spent months lobbying against them, attending HOA meetings, sending emails to city officials, and even confronting neighbors directly. But nothing seemed to work. Her complaints were dismissed as exaggerations, and her suggestions for stricter regulations were met with indifference. Frustrated but undeterred, Karen began taking matters into her own hands. She started documenting every perceived infraction, real or imagined, at Emma's bungalow. Late-night arrivals? She snapped photos of car headlights, loud music. She recorded videos of perfectly ordinary conversations between guests. Parking violations? She marked down license plate numbers, even if the cars were legally parked on public streets. Armed with this evidence, Karen bombarded the HOA board, property management companies, and local authorities with reports. Yet no one took action. The bungalow continued operating as usual, much to Karen's growing irritation. Then came the lull, the moment that would change everything. For reasons unknown to Karen, there was a brief period when Emma's Airbnb sat unoccupied. Perhaps it was due to seasonal fluctuations in bookings, or maybe the property manager hadn't listed it during that time. Whatever the reason, the bungalow stood empty, its windows dark and its driveway clear of cars. To Karen, this was proof of what she'd been saying all along. Short-term rentals were unreliable, inconsistent, and ultimately harmful to the neighborhood. Seizing the opportunity, Karen hatched a plan. She convinced herself that stepping in was not only justified but necessary. If no one else was going to do something about the problem, then she would. After all, she reasoned, someone needed to protect the neighborhood from the chaos caused by transient visitors. And who better than her, the self-appointed guardian of the community? But Karen's ambitions went beyond simply occupying the space temporarily. She wanted to make it permanent. With a mix of determination and entitlement, she decided to move into the bungalow herself. It wasn't enough to just stay there, she intended to claim it as her own. How? By invoking a legal concept she vaguely understood called squatters' rights. The first step in Karen's scheme involved gaining access to the property. Somehow, and the details remain murky, she managed to obtain spare keys to the bungalow. Whether she copied them without permission, found them hidden somewhere, or coerced information out of someone close to the property, Karen never revealed how she got them. What mattered to her was that she now had the means to enter the house whenever she pleased. On a cloudy Tuesday afternoon, Karen loaded up her belongings into her car and drove over to the bungalow. Carrying boxes filled with clothes, kitchenware, and decorative items, she marched right up to the front door, unlocked it, and stepped inside. For Karen, this wasn't breaking and entering. It was reclaiming what she believed rightfully belonged to the neighborhood. Over the next few days, she transformed the once charming vacation rental into her personal living space. She rearranged furniture, hung up family photos, and replaced Emma's carefully chosen decor with her own mismatched knickknacks. To anyone watching, it looked like Karen had moved in as though she owned the place. As weeks turned into months, Karen doubled down on her bizarre justification. When curious neighbors asked why she was suddenly living in the bungalow, she launched into lengthy explanations about squatters' rights. She claimed that because the property had been left vacant for an extended period, she had every right to occupy it. She argued that Emma's absence proved neglect, and therefore, she was doing everyone a favor by ensuring the house didn't fall into disrepair. Of course, none of this was true. Squatters' rights laws are far more complicated than Karen made them sound, requiring years of continuous open possession under specific conditions. But Karen either didn't know or didn't care about the actual legal requirements. All that mattered to her was convincing others, and perhaps herself, that she was in the right. To bolster her argument, Karen began spreading misinformation throughout the neighborhood. At HOA meetings, she presented her version of events with unwavering confidence, insisting that Emma's bungalow had become a blight on the community. She painted herself as a hero, stepping in where others had failed. Some residents nodded along sympathetically, unsure of what to believe. Others rolled their eyes, dismissing Karen's antics as yet another example of her over-the-top behavior. But regardless of how people felt, one thing was certain: Karen had crossed a line. She wasn't just complaining anymore. She had taken drastic illegal action. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, Emma remained blissfully unaware of the chaos unfolding at her property. She was busy navigating her new life abroad, juggling work assignments, exploring foreign cities, and adjusting to a different culture. Occasionally, she checked in with her property management company via email, asking how things were going back home. Each time they assured her everything was fine. Bookings were steady, maintenance was up to date, and there were no major issues to report. Relieved, Emma focused on her overseas adventure, trusting that her investment was safe in capable hands. Little did she know, her trust was misplaced. The property management team had grown complacent, failing to notice Karen's unauthorized takeover. Surveillance cameras installed outside the bungalow captured glimpses of Karen moving in, but no one reviewed the footage regularly. Even if they had, it's unclear whether they would have recognized the gravity of the situation. After all, who would expect someone to brazenly take over a stranger's home and declare themselves its rightful occupant? Back in the neighborhood, tension simmered beneath the surface. While some residents admired Karen's boldness or at least found it amusing, others grew increasingly uneasy. They whispered among themselves, wondering how long Karen could get away with her scheme. A few considered reporting her to the authorities, but fear of retaliation kept them silent. No one wanted to be the target of Karen's wrath. So, for months, the bizarre situation persisted. Karen lived comfortably in the bungalow, acting as though she owned it, while Emma's hard-earned investment slipped further and further out of her control. Unbeknownst to Karen, however, the clock was ticking. Sooner or later, the truth would come out. And when it did, the consequences would be anything but pleasant. Months passed, and Emma's life abroad continued to unfold in exciting ways. She had thrown herself into her new role with enthusiasm, soaking up every opportunity that came her way. From attending international conferences to exploring bustling markets and scenic landscapes, she was living a dream many would envy. Her Airbnb bungalow back home rarely crossed her mind. After all, the property management company had assured her everything was running smoothly. But as fate would have it, even the most carefully laid plans can unravel in unexpected ways. It started with an email, one of those routine check-ins Emma occasionally sent to her property manager. "How's the bungalow doing?" she asked, casually, expecting the usual response. "Everything's fine, bookings are steady, no issues to report." Instead, the reply she received stopped her cold. The message was brief, but alarming. "We've noticed some irregular activity at the property recently. We're looking into it." Emma stared at the screen, her heart sinking. Irregular activity? What did that mean? Had there been vandalism? Break-ins? Damage caused by unruly guests? Her mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Desperate for answers, she immediately fired off a follow-up email demanding more details. The property manager responded within hours, attaching security camera footage and explaining what they had discovered. When Emma clicked on the video file, her jaw dropped. There, plain as day, was Karen Wilkins, the same woman who had been complaining about short-term rentals for months, carrying boxes and bags into her bungalow. The footage showed Karen unlocking the door with keys she clearly shouldn't have had, moving furniture around and making herself at home as if she owned the place. It was surreal, almost comical, like something out of a sitcom. Except this wasn't fiction, it was real life. And it was happening to Emma. The shock quickly gave way to anger. How dare someone invade her property like this? Who did Karen think she was? Emma felt violated, as though her personal space had been desecrated. This wasn't just a house. It was her investment, her hard work, her pride. And now, some stranger had taken it over without permission, claiming it as their own. The audacity of it all left Emma fuming. Determined to get to the bottom of the situation, Emma sprang into action. She contacted her lawyers immediately, sending them the security footage and any other evidence she could gather. She also reached out to local law enforcement, filing a formal complaint against Karen for trespassing and theft. But as she soon learned, resolving the issue wouldn't be as simple as she hoped. Karen, it turned out, was not backing down easily. When confronted by authorities, she doubled down on her earlier claims, insisting that she had every right to occupy the bungalow. She cited obscure legal terms like adverse possession and squatter's rights, arguing that Emma's prolonged absence from the property proved neglect. According to Karen, she was merely stepping in to prevent the house from falling into disrepair, a noble act in her eyes. Her arguments, while legally flawed, gained traction among certain members of the community. Some neighbors sympathized with Karen's crusade against short-term rentals, viewing her actions as extreme but understandable given the ongoing tensions in the neighborhood. Others saw her behavior as laughable and absurd, mocking her audacity behind closed doors. Social media played a significant role in amplifying the drama, with screenshots of the security footage spreading like wildfire online. Memes and jokes about HOA Karen began popping up everywhere, turning the bizarre incident into a viral sensation. For Emma, the public attention brought both support and scrutiny. On one hand, thousands of people rallied behind her, condemning Karen's actions and offering words of encouragement. Many praised Emma for standing up to someone so brazenly entitled. On the other hand, however, some critics questioned whether Emma bore partial responsibility for the situation. They pointed out that relying on short-term rentals could contribute to neighborhood instability, fueling complaints from residents like Karen. These criticisms stung, especially since Emma had worked so hard to ensure her property was well-maintained and respectful of the community. As the story gained national attention, reporters descended upon the quiet neighborhood, eager to capture interviews and document the unfolding drama. Camera crews parked outside the bungalow, capturing footage of Karen coming and going as though nothing unusual was happening. Neighbors found themselves caught in the middle, torn between supporting Emma and avoiding Karen's wrath. Tensions ran high, with tempers flaring during heated discussions at HOA meetings and online forums. Meanwhile, Emma faced mounting pressure to resolve the situation quickly. Every day Karen remained in the bungalow was another day of lost income and potential damage to her reputation. Determined to reclaim her property, she instructed her legal team to explore every possible avenue. They dug deep into property records, reviewed surveillance footage, and interviewed witnesses to build a solid case against Karen. Slowly but surely, cracks began to appear in Karen's defense. One key piece of evidence emerged when investigators discovered how Karen had obtained access to the bungalow. Through meticulous detective work, they uncovered that Karen had secretly copied the spare keys without permission, a clear violation of the law. Furthermore, documents surfaced showing that Karen had forged paperwork attempting to justify her claim of squatters' rights. These revelations painted a damning picture of deceit and entitlement, undermining her credibility completely. Despite these breakthroughs, Karen refused to leave quietly. She hired her own lawyer, who argued that Karen's presence in the bungalow served the greater good by addressing concerns about short-term rentals. Public opinion, however, had already shifted decisively against her. The more Karen dug in her heels, the more ridiculous she appeared. Videos of her defiantly carrying groceries into the bungalow went viral, accompanied by snarky captions like "Move over Goldilocks" and "Squattergate 2023." Even late-night talk show hosts joked about the saga, further cementing Karen's infamy. For Emma, the experience was emotionally draining yet oddly empowering. Watching strangers rally behind her gave her a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that this wasn't just about reclaiming her property, it was about standing up for justice and accountability. While she couldn't control what others thought or said about her decision to invest in a vacation rental, she could fight to protect what was rightfully hers. As the legal battle intensified, Emma knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she also knew one thing for certain. She wasn't going to let Karen win, not after everything she'd worked so hard to build. With determination burning in her chest, Emma prepared herself for the next phase of the fight, a showdown that would ultimately reveal the truth and restore order to her chaotic world. The courtroom was packed to the brim. Reporters scribbled notes furiously, cameras clicked incessantly, and spectators whispered among themselves as they waited for the judge to enter. The case of Emma Thompson versus Karen Wilkins had become a national sensation, drawing attention from all corners of the country. What started as a bizarre neighborhood dispute had escalated into a legal battle that gripped the public's imagination. For Emma, this wasn't just about reclaiming her property. It was about proving that no one could simply take what didn't belong to them without consequences. Karen sat on the defendant's side of the room, her expression defiant, despite the mounting evidence against her. She clutched a stack of papers in her hands, occasionally flipping through them as if rehearsing her arguments one last time. Her lawyer, a seasoned but weary-looking man, leaned over to whisper something in her ear. On the other side of the aisle, Emma sat upright, her posture calm but resolute. Flanked by her attorneys, she exuded quiet confidence. After months of stress and sleepless nights, she finally felt like justice might be within reach. The trial began with opening statements. Emma's lead attorney stood up first, addressing the court with clarity and precision. He laid out the facts. Karen Wilkins had illegally entered Emma's property using copied keys, moved in without permission, and attempted to claim squatters' rights based on false pretenses. "This is not a case of misunderstanding or miscommunication," he said firmly. "It is a case of theft, trespassing, and forgery. My client worked tirelessly to create a successful business, only to have it stolen from under her nose while she was thousands of miles away." When it was Karen's lawyer's turn to speak, he tried to paint his client as a misunderstood victim of circumstance. He argued that Karen's actions were motivated by a desire to protect the neighborhood from the perceived chaos caused by short-term rentals. Ms. Wilkins believed she was acting in the best interest of her community, he declared. She saw an abandoned property and stepped in to prevent further neglect. The statement drew murmurs from the crowd, some skeptical, others sympathetic. As the days wore on, both sides presented their evidence. Emma's team meticulously walked the jury through security camera footage, showing Karen entering the bungalow with unauthorized keys. They showcased bank records proving that Emma regularly paid property taxes and maintenance fees, debunking Karen's claim of neglect. Perhaps most damning was the discovery of forged documents Karen had allegedly created to support her squatters' rights argument. Experts testified that the paperwork was riddled with inconsistencies and outright falsehoods. Karen's defense struggled to counter these revelations. When questioned under oath, Karen grew defensive, her earlier bravado crumbling under cross-examination. Her explanations sounded increasingly far-fetched. Asked why she hadn't contacted Emma or the property management company before moving in, she stammered, I assumed they wouldn't care." Pressed further about the forged documents, she claimed ignorance, insisting someone else must have prepared them for her. The jury didn't look convinced. Outside the courtroom, public opinion continued to sway dramatically against Karen. Social media remained ablaze with commentary, memes, and hashtags like "Our Squattergate" and "Our Justice for Emma." Late-night comedians roasted Karen nightly, turning her antics into punchlines. One particularly viral skit featured an actress portraying Karen storming into random homes declaring, "I'm here to save your neighborhood." The audience roared with laughter, but for Emma, the humor was bittersweet. While she appreciated the support, the constant attention weighed heavily on her. Every headline, every joke, served as a reminder of how much her life had been disrupted. Back, in the neighborhood where it all began, tensions simmered between residents. Some neighbors rallied behind Emma, organizing fundraisers to help cover her legal expenses. Flyers appeared around town with messages like, "Support local property owners," and "No trespassing means no trespassing." Others, however, still sympathized with Karen, or at least feared retaliation if they spoke out against her. A few even defended her actions, arguing that short-term rentals had long been a source of frustration for many in the community. Amidst the chaos, Emma found solace in unexpected places. Strangers reached out to her online, sharing stories of their own battles with difficult neighbors or unjust laws. Their words of encouragement reminded her that she wasn't alone. Friends and family offered emotional support, reminding her to focus on the bigger picture. "You're setting a precedent," her older brother told her during a phone call. "If you win this, you'll send a message to anyone thinking of pulling a stunt like this." But winning wasn't guaranteed. Legal proceedings are unpredictable, and Karen's lawyer was doing everything possible to cast doubt on Emma's claims. He questioned whether Emma truly intended to use the bungalow as her primary residence, a requirement for challenging squatters' rights in some jurisdictions. He also argued that Emma's reliance on short-term rentals made her partly responsible for the neighborhood's discontent. These tactics infuriated Emma, but she refused to let them shake her resolve. One pivotal moment came when the judge ruled on a motion to dismiss Karen's squatters' rights defense altogether. After reviewing the evidence, including the forged documents and unauthorized key usage, the judge sided with Emma. "The defendant's actions do not meet the legal standards for adverse possession," he stated sternly. Her occupancy of the property was neither continuous nor open as required by law. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, and Emma allowed herself a small smile. It was a major victory, but the fight wasn't over yet. With Karen's primary defense dismantled, the prosecution shifted its focus to criminal charges. Breaking and entering, theft, and forgery became the central issues. Witnesses took the stand, recounting how Karen had bragged about taking over the bungalow or complained bitterly about short-term rentals. Even some of Karen's former allies testified against her, admitting they'd grown uncomfortable with her behavior. Throughout it all, Emma remained composed, though the toll of the ordeal was evident. Dark circles lingered under her eyes, and there were moments when her voice wavered during testimony. Yet she persevered, driven by the knowledge that giving up wasn't an option. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about sending a message that entitlement and dishonesty wouldn't be tolerated. By the time closing arguments rolled around, the atmosphere in the courtroom was electric. Emma's lawyer delivered a passionate speech, urging the jury to consider the broader implications of their decision. "This case isn't just about one property or one neighborhood," he said. "It's about protecting people's rights to their own homes and businesses. If we allow individuals to seize property through deception and force, what kind of society are we building?" Karen's lawyer countered with a final plea for leniency, portraying his client as misguided rather than malicious. But his words lacked conviction, and the jury seemed unconvinced. As deliberations began, Emma felt a mix of exhaustion and hope. She knew the verdict wouldn't erase the past months of turmoil, but it could mark the beginning of closure. When the jury foreman finally stood to announce their decision, the room fell silent, guilty on all counts. The words echoed like thunder, bringing tears to Emma's eyes. Justice had prevailed, but the aftermath was only beginning. The courtroom erupted in murmurs as the jury foreman's words hung in the air, guilty on all counts. Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her, but it was mixed with exhaustion. The months of stress, legal battles, and public scrutiny had taken their toll, and while the verdict brought closure, it didn't erase the emotional scars left behind. Across the room, Karen sat frozen, her face pale and her lips pressed into a thin line. For the first time since the ordeal began, she looked defeated. As the judge handed down the sentence, the full weight of Karen's actions caught up with her. She was ordered to pay restitution for damages to the property, cover Emma's legal fees, and serve probation for her crimes. While jail time was avoided due to mitigating circumstances, Karen's age and lack of prior offenses, the judge made it clear that her behavior was unacceptable. "This is not how disputes are resolved in a civilized society," he said sternly. "Your actions caused harm to an innocent person and disrupted an entire community. Let this be a lesson." For Karen, the aftermath was humiliating. Cameras captured her being escorted out of the courthouse by officers. Her head bowed as reporters shouted questions at her. Social media exploded with reactions, ranging from satisfaction to mockery. Memes featuring Karen went viral once again, this time captioned with phrases like "karma came knocking" and "eviction notice delivered." Even late-night comedians couldn't resist poking fun, dedicating entire segments to the downfall of HOA Karen. To many, justice had been served, and served publicly. But for Emma, the victory was bittersweet. Yes, she had won the case. But reclaiming her bungalow wouldn't be as simple as turning a key. Months of unauthorized occupation had left its mark. Karen hadn't just moved in. She'd redecorated, rearranged furniture, and replaced fixtures according to her own taste. Walls were painted mismatched colors, appliances showed signs of wear, and some of Emma's original furnishings were missing altogether. It would take weeks and thousands of dollars to restore the property to its former charm. Determined to move forward, Emma rolled up her sleeves and got to work. She hired contractors to repaint walls, replace damaged flooring, and repair broken fixtures. She scoured thrift stores and online marketplaces to replace items Karen had either ruined or taken. Slowly but surely, the bungalow began to feel like home again, or rather like the cozy vacation rental it was meant to be. Friends and supporters rallied around her, donating time and resources to help speed up the process. One neighbor even gifted her a new set of throw pillows, saying, "You deserve something fresh after everything you've been through." While the physical restoration of the bungalow progressed, Emma also worked to rebuild her reputation. The viral nature of the case had cast her in two opposing lights: a victim fighting for justice and a symbol of the very issues plaguing neighborhoods with short-term rentals. Some critics continued to argue that properties like hers contributed to rising tensions between residents and tourists. Others praised her resilience and determination to stand up against someone who blatantly disregarded the law. Emma knew she couldn't please everyone, so she focused on finding balance. She decided to implement stricter guidelines for her Airbnb listings, including noise restrictions, designated parking spots, and clearer communication with neighbors about guest expectations. She also reached out to local officials and HOA members, offering to collaborate on solutions that addressed concerns without banning short-term rentals outright. Her goal was to foster mutual respect, a tall order but one worth pursuing. In the meantime, life in the neighborhood slowly returned to normal. Neighbors who had once tiptoed around Karen now breathed easier, relieved that her reign of self-appointed authority had ended. Some even apologized to Emma for not speaking out sooner, admitting they'd been too afraid of retaliation. HOA meetings became less contentious, though debates over short-term rentals continued. Still, the sense of division that Karen had amplified began to fade, replaced by cautious optimism. For Karen, the consequences extended beyond the courtroom. Once seen as a vocal advocate for the neighborhood, she now faced ostracism. Many neighbors avoided her, unwilling to associate with someone whose actions had caused so much trouble. Her attempts to justify herself fell flat, dismissed as excuses rather than explanations. Over time, Karen withdrew from community activities, retreating into relative obscurity. Whether she truly understood the impact of her choices remained unclear, but one thing was certain: she had lost the trust and respect of those around her. As for Emma, the experience changed her in profound ways. Before the ordeal, she had viewed her bungalow purely as an investment, a source of passive income and financial security. Now she saw it as more than that. It represented resilience, perseverance, and the importance of standing up for what's right, even when the odds seem stacked against you. She also gained a deeper appreciation for the complexities of community dynamics. While she still believed in the value of short-term rentals, she recognized the need for compromise and understanding. Eventually, Emma made a decision that surprised many. She sold the bungalow, not because she couldn't handle the challenges of managing it, but because she realized it no longer aligned with her long-term goals. Instead, she invested in a different type of asset, one less likely to attract controversy. She purchased a small apartment building designed for long-term tenants, allowing her to generate steady income while avoiding the pitfalls of vacation rentals. It was a fresh start, both professionally and personally. Looking back on the saga, Emma couldn't help but chuckle at how absurd it all seemed. Who would have thought that renting out a charming little bungalow could lead to such drama? Yet, despite the chaos, she emerged stronger and wiser. The ordeal taught her valuable lessons about boundaries, accountability, and the power of community. It also reminded her that sometimes life really is stranger than fiction, and karma has a way of catching up with those who cross the line. Today, Emma reflects on the experience with a mix of pride and humor. Whenever someone mentions HOA Karen, she smiles knowingly, grateful for the support she received and the justice she fought for. The bungalow may no longer belong to her, but its story lives on, a testament to the triumph of integrity over entitlement and a reminder that even in the face of adversity, good can prevail.